Hey folks, welcome to the 30 Days to Learn Adobe After Effects course. My name is Vincent Nguyen, and today in this lesson we're going to be talking about the graph editor within the application. So here in After Effects, I have a very simple demonstration that I want to show you guys. And so let's go ahead and take a look at what I have here. So obviously there are two bouncing balls here and they're kind of just falling from nowhere. And obviously one looks a little bit more realistic than the other. Notice how this one behaves more like a ball compared to this one right here. So why does this ball behave and react more realistically compared to this ball right here, the ball linear? And that's because of the type of keyframes that we use. Now in After Effects, when we create a keyframe, by default it creates linear keyframes, which just goes from one point to the other. There's no slope, there's no exponential growth, there's none of that stuff. And it may be kind of hard to see and realize because there's really no visual or clear way to see it all besides some diamond shaped keyframes. But if you go into the graph editor here, if you go into the composition and click on the graph editor button, you're going to see a graph here, and it may look kind of complicated at first, but let me just show you what it does real quick. So I'm going to click away. I'm going to show all the keyframes for the two ball here. I'm going to hit U on the keyboard, and it's going to show all the keyframes. Now look at the values, they're exactly the same in the Y, because obviously the X direction is a little bit different because the balls are in different spaces in the X axis, but check out the Y axis, they're exactly the same. I see from keyframe to keyframe, they are all pretty much the same here. So why does this one behave more realistically? Well, notice how this one is the crappy one, and this one is a more realistic one, and it has easy ease keyframes. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the graph here. So to view the graph, you want to select your parameter. In this case, we want to see the position, and then we want to go to the graph editor here. Okay, so just think of this visually. The ball is staying still, and it's going to drop, and then bounce, drop, and then bounce, and so on and so forth. You can see that it looks very, very linear. We have straight lines across the board here. So horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical. So we just have some very blocky, choppy movement. This thing is very choppy and blocky, so the animation is going to be very, very choppy and blocky as well. So not really, really pretty, and that's not how things behave in the real world, and it looks very, very amateur-like, and this is where most people stop. This is how people usually keyframe stuff, and it's a really bad practice. We should always tweak this stuff out. So before we tweak anything out, let's go ahead and take a look at the more realistic ball here. So notice this graph here, and when I switch to the more realistic ball, you can see it looks more like a ball simulation here. So we start up here, it's going to fall down, and then as it gets closer to the ground, it's going to fall even faster. We have a very exponential growth here, or I guess decline. And then it's going to hit the ground, and then it's going to slowly bounce up. And as it reaches the top, it's going to kind of slope off here. As you can see, it's not really a straight line. Let me just zoom in here. You can see that it's not really a straight line. It's kind of a nice smooth curve. It's going to go up, slowly come to a stopping point, bounce down, slowly bounce back up, and slowly bounce down. And as it goes down, the slope gets steeper and steeper, which means faster movement, and so on and so forth. So visually, you can kind of see that this looks nothing like a ball path, and this looks more like a realistic bouncing path here. And you're right. And so let me just show you how to use this thing and how to kind of edit and tweak keyframes so that things are a little bit more lively. So if we click away, we get these nice curves because we have easy ease keyframes here. So just keep that in mind. So we have at the beginning the ball drops, and it bounces. We don't need any smoothing as it bounces down because it's just gonna fall down pretty hard, and then it's gonna come back up, and we want it to slowly smooth to the top here. And that's the reason why I added an easy ease keyframe, so it kind of smoothes the position as it goes up, slowly comes to a stop, and then slowly comes down, hits the ground, and so on and so forth. So enough of that crap. Let me just go ahead and delete these. We'll start fresh here, and let's just take a look at kind of a title design here. So I'm going to create a new layer, like a new solid here, and we'll make it black. We'll call this bar, and then we'll resize it by clicking on these little cubes here and just kind of resizing it here. And we'll create a very basic animation. We'll make 2. And we'll start at the beginning. Hit P on the keyboard to show the position. And we'll just drag the bar over here like that. Maybe we'll move this one up top. And we'll move this one on the bottom. And we'll animate 2 at a time. So we have these 2 bars out of screen. We'll hit a keyframe stopwatch to create a keyframe here. We'll move 3 seconds in. And we'll just push the bar, maybe right there. So we're going to kind of create a simple, crappy lower thirds. So the bars are just moving. That's pretty cool. And then we want to create our text here. So let's go to Layer, New, Text. We'll just type in After Effects. And we'll make it white. We'll scale it down a little bit. That's cool. And we'll position it in the bar here. And then we'll duplicate it, Control Command D. And then we can bring it down here. So if you hold down Shift, we can just drag it down. So we have 2 of the exact same thing. And we'll just do a fade. So, we'll start right here or so. Hit T on the keyboard to bring up the opacity. Hit a keyframe stopwatch for both. And notice how if I select 2 items and do the same thing, it's going to apply the same keyframes to both selected layers here. So if I change the opacity for one, it's going to change the opacity for both because I have both selected. We'll go to the end here, set it to 100. Anyway, so we have a very basic lower thirds animation here. Let me go ahead and just tighten it up a little bit. It's a little bit too slow, so we'll just move it forward. Make this animation a little bit faster. Just like that. And as you can see, it looks kind of boring, it looks very, very amateur, and it looks very, very plain. So how do we add some life into this thing? We can do that with some keyframes. So I'm just going to ignore the text here. We don't really need to worry about the opacity. The opacity can fade in a linear fashion. It wouldn't matter. So we'll just call this one Pimped Out. And this one's going to be the nicer one. And this one's going to be the crappy one. So we'll leave the crappy one alone. We'll shut that off. We don't need to see it. We'll shut off the text as well. So we'll just focus on this one here, the Pimped Out one. So we hit P on the keyboard to show the keyframes. We'll hit on the position parameter to select it. And they're linear. So we can change the keyframes again by going to right-click, Keyframe Assistant, and changing it this way. But most of the time, we want to go to the graph editor here. And you can see that we have 2 little cubes, 2 little blocks right here. So I'm going to select these 2 by highlighting them. And I'm going to go down here and select this one right here, Easy Ease. And it's just going to create a nice slope for us. So now the animation is a little bit smoother as it comes in and as it comes out. Pretty cool. But we want this thing to kind of fling out because this is motion graphics. And in motion graphics, we don't want anything linear. We want things to be very, very lively with a lot of energy. So we're going to select the first cube here. And because we converted it to a Bezier, we have a nice handle. We can pull the handle and create this very interesting slope. So let's create that slope right here, and we'll drag this one over. Now, notice what happens. We have a very, very high slope here. So the position is going to go from this point to this point really, really fast. And then it's going to slow down as it comes to a stop. So that's what we want. We want kind of a slingshot really fast and then slowly come to a stop. So watch what happens. See, that looks more lively and with a lot more energy. Kind of flings at us and then slows down. We can even make it more obvious by just increasing it a little bit more. That's pretty cool. So let me turn back on the crappy one, the original one that we did. And let's just check it out which one looks a lot better. So I'm going to do a RAM preview. This one looks a lot nicer, a lot smoother with more energy. And if I was going to show a lower thirds, I would definitely choose this one because it has more dynamics in the animation. So as you can see, you can kind of tweak the velocity, tweak the slope of all the parameters. Again, this is not just for the position. You can do this for the opacity, but you can do it for pretty much all parameters that you can keyframe just by selecting the parameter and go into the graph editor. So just a very basic tutorial on the graph editor. I highly suggest that you use it. It may not be so important for visual effects, but for motion graphics, it's very, very crucial that you add some more dynamic animation to your whole project. And you know, it was just a nice chance for me to show you what the graph editor does and how to kind of read it and how to analyze it. So the next lesson, we're going to be talking about parenting within After Effects, the benefits of parenting layers, and null objects. So definitely look forward to that. If you guys have any further questions, don't forget to leave them in the forums. I'll get to them as soon as I can. Once again, guys, my name is Vincent Nguyen, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson. Bye, guys.